human rights, because from it, all other human rights are involved. I will quote to you Article 1 of this Universal Declaration. Of course, let us note that over the time, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has become an important instrument because it has entered international customary law, which means it is binding. It has become legally binding. And so Article 1 of this instrument says that man is born free and equal in dignity and in rights. He is endowed with conscience and should act towards another in the spirit of brotherhood. So it is this brotherhood which enjoins us to know that wherever we are, however we are, irrespective of our status, irrespective of the privileges we have, we come from one source, and that source is the great creator. I don't know how you call him, but we know that we are created from the great person. Others call it God, others call it Allah, and others have different names. I'm sure in Ghana they will have different names. But we know that we come from one source, having one blood, red. The color is red. So we know from here so many instruments have been enacted, adopted, and they have been enforced by the United Nations. And states are called upon to ratify, to sign and ratify them. Bangladesh has signed and ratified the Pretoria of this instrument. We have also gone a long way to incorporate this into the Constitution, which is so lovely, and yet the application is improper. This is why we have signed all these documents. Member of the United Nations, that is how to ensure that there is peace in every corner of the world. And this peace can only pass through the implementation of the instrument regulating people's rights. Yet, as a member, human rights continue to be violated, which has made it for me to term it an endangered species. So human rights is an endangered species. And it is right and the laws that ought to have been incorporated into the national law that will give us the opportunity to be able to participate in our government. Therefore, we are talking about democracy. And that democracy is well regulated by its instruments. And so today, to take us through this journey, we have a panel of panelists, which we will be calling upon each one to give an insight of how human rights is, the rule of law, and how democracy is practiced in Bangladesh. I would like to call upon our dear friend to kickstart this event with a video which we will listen.
How Dr. Youth in your world and the combination of forms where agencies is one part, let alone fundamental minds like the UPL. All these tools trying to make the ways in this country's most always a on-return attention or technologies of interim without connection election. And when we enter international rights also has been decisions the West for a so-called process and international rights access, organizations, politicians, lawyers, journalists, raised their concern very beginning. Use into didn't pay attention to this concern.
Given the evenly charged legislative backlash that this is not part of the global decisions, this is a moment to concern. Many governments are condemning requirements of police and
7 months to the rain. Reality check reveals just how opposite our narrative. Law and order.
I think I don't know. I don't know.
While the judiciary and law enforcement have done
Wait.
models of the
Sound effect.
lynching, communal violence,
Interview test.
alongside
Wait now.
rape, curb on freedom of movement for women and girls, royal the nation. Let's take a look at how rights abuses exacerbated in the country, extrajudicial killing and custodial death by law enforcement. Since August 5th, at the behest of Bangladesh Army, joint forces troops are also empowered with magistracy power and following our monthly status of killing under law enforcement. Atrocities against minorities.
We have a responsibility, because we enable Bangladesh to be free and independent. Now, whatever the change of government in Bangladesh, it cannot be acceptable that religious minorities are persecuted in this way.
Attacks on followers of Sufis and shrines. Islamists inciting violence against minorities, in stark contrast to government's narrative on ruling out communal line over attacks against minorities. BBC journalists laid bare how Islamists, released after August 5th, are inciting ongoing spate of violence, targeting all minority communities, including Hindus. 2 episodes in BBC radio service brings to light the stark involvement of Islamists in fomenting attacks against minorities. Eunice's sweeping indemnity for mass killing of cops, citizens, and violent attacks on police stations by loyalists. In contrast to the pledge to ensure justice, an order issued on October 14, 2024 by Eunice reads, students and citizens who put forth all efforts to make this uprising successful will not face prosecution, arrest, or harassment for their acts between August 8th. Emboldened at the indemnity, advocates of the Eunice regime, radical Islamists, and coordinators from Students Against Discrimination platforms publicly glorified the killing spree of cops and planned destruction of key public offices as part of a violent campaign to bring down Awami. By such public admission of killing, the decree justifying no legal action against violence perpetrated by supporters of Eunice has been likened by rights activists as an act of widespread indemnity granted for perpetrators who killed police, minorities, citizens affiliated with Awami League, aimed to bring Eunice in power and solidify his grip on power. No justice for killing of at least 318 people under Eunice regime. INO Shalish Kendra, a leading human rights organization, reported. Massacre of Awami League activists. At least 171 citizens were reportedly killed in the form of lynching, arson, and other forms of violence. According to accounts of family members, tens of thousands of party activists and leaders in almost each unit of 4,573 units in all the 64 districts across the country subjected to physical attacks, and their houses and business were looted and vandalized. Hundreds of activists are feared, killed as their whereabouts are unknown for months. Due to impunity for killing of Awami League leaders and activists, there has been no let-up in the extrajudicial killing spree even after 6 months. Rather, the cycle of vengeance and erosion of rights only compounded. Violence against women, safety of female population, from clothing to workplace and movement, under unity reigns supreme. Death of freedom of press. The claim of Dr. Yunus to uphold freedom of press emerged out of the biggest hoax in 6 months, as not only journalists are suppressed with meticulous design of false lawsuits, arbitrary arrests, unlawful incarceration, but also a record number of headquarters of media outlets came under attacks. Since August 5th, offices of at least 19 media outlets are torched and vandalized, highest since the country's history, according to DW Bandit Service. Mass arrests and arbitrary detention, brutal crackdown. At least 13,540 people were subjected to mass arrests and arbitrary detention from August 2024 till January 2025. In 20 days of February, at least 12,500 were detained in political cases. No justice in court. Victims of mass arrests denied of legal rights. Reports reveal critics of Yunus regime, who have been subjected to mass arrests, were attacked inside court premises on a regular basis. Denial of academic rights of students. Over the space of the last 6 months, tens of thousands of students who were opposed to Yunus and his allies were attacked inside campuses, even barred from attending examinations, denied of academic rights, and their certificates have been cancelled by university authorities. Only because of political belief or alignment with Awami League's student wing, scores of students were murdered, abducted from their home, and even thrown behind the bars. Now the questions over Yunus gaining undue privileges to expand business empire.
What a beautiful film. A beautiful film of human rights violation. And if you got it like I got, what came out clearly is the student people's uprising, which has degenerated into massive arrests, mass killing, and arbitrary arrest and detention. And we've also seen how indigenous people are struggling to combat for the respect of their rights. To chain up with this one, we shall be calling on Professor Dr. Habibe Miller to just come in. Professor, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And respected panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it's very heartbreaking. If you saw the video, you saw what is happening in Bangladesh at the moment. I'm going to present a few more slides to show what's happening at the moment. This presentation is a concise and alarming overview of the human rights violation, political oppression, national instability occurring under the unelected interim government of Bangladesh. Based on documented incidents and verified data, the findings highlight systemic abuse of power, suppression of democratic rights, erosion of the rule of law across the country. Even though the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina didn't resign, Article 106 of the Constitution was misinterpreted. As a result, the Parliament was dissolved and the interim government was sworn in. If you see this slide, at least 637 people were killed in mob lynching from August to July 2025. 64 individuals as extrajudicial killing while they were in custody. 22 political detainees related to Awami League died in custody. Political violence, 213, at least 230, maybe more. Leaders and activists of the Awami League and its affiliated organization have been murdered. At least 360,000 people have been arrested who are related, majority of them are related to Awami League. And as you know, more than 15 million people are internally displaced for the fear of law enforcement authority or mob. 119 members of parliament, including 15 women members, have illegally detained for a long time, over 14 months. Attacked everywhere. The birthplace of independence, the Bangkok Museum, was demolished over 2 days in front of the law enforcement authority. Nobody prevented it. About 1,400 sculpture monument related to the 1971 liberation was demolished. Over 100 shrines was demolished during this time. Law enforcement authority didn't get any escape from this. 44 police officers were killed, 182 police officers are currently missing, and more than 500 police stations have been attacked, vandalized, and set on fire. And more than 9,000 firearms were robbed. That has not been recovered yet. Women and children's rights is really compromised. If you compare with the previous years, the dramatic increase in the child abuse. 306 children were raped, 259 children were murdered, and 640 were abused from January to June this year. 12,726 cases of violence against women, over 4,000 cases, September 24 to June 25. Women's rights and freedom are being seriously harmed. Minority persecution. If you look at the country from the 4th or 5th August 2024, 30 minority people, including 3 indigenous people, have been killed. 20 minority women raped. 17 churches were set on fire on the Christmas Day 2024. 103 incidences of human rights violation documented in the Chittagong military drugs. 49 were arbitrarily arrested. At least 396 LGBTQ plus individuals harassed in 17 documented incidents. Evidence confirmed over 2,000 around 2,500 incidents of minority persecution during last year, during this interim government. We need to address those issues. Suppression of the democratic processes by this unelected government. This is that the ruling interim government attempted to legitimate power through fake resignation letter of the Prime Minister. And misinterpretation, I mentioned already, Article 106. And Awami League was banned, the most oldest party of the country, the most popular party, the largest party in the country, is banned with an ordinance. The election commission has suspended registration as well, that they cannot participate in the election. Religious extremism is at its highest level in the last 54 years. At least 300 militant suspects have been granted bail despite of their serious charges. Media under censorship. 184 journalists' accreditation card has been removed or revoked. 266 journalists are implicated in fabricated murder cases. 14 journalists have been arrested on false charges. Media houses are facing threats and vandalism over the last 14 months. If you see that over 182 factories have been closed for the last 14 months and the resulting job loss of more than 100,000 people. Bangladesh National Human Rights Commission was dissolved by the resignation of a member. This has not been formed yet. Our future generation, the student, over 200,000 students' life is disrupted because of they cannot go to their education institute, or they cannot sit for the exam, fear of mob violence, fear of arrest, they cannot sit, they cannot get their registration, they cannot get their, even they cannot register for the exams. So there is a huge disruption of the educational life, and also teachers are getting attacked by mob violences. I just want to show the Nobel laureate, Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who has a worldwide, very big image, but what he has done over the last 14 months. He has expanded his wealth and business. 666 crore taka, which is about $55 billion. of Gramin Kollan was waived. The exemption he got for 5 years tax for Gramin Bank, and also he got the ownership of Gramin Bank from the government 25 to 10%, and he also got approval of the digital wallet, manpower license, and universities. Human Rights Commission published a report, and that was really what they wrote. The report has not been edited according with the United Nations editorial standard. If you cannot maintain the editorial standard of the United Nations, why do you publish a report? That report is methodological and limitation and weakness it has. Defect in validation process and biased information. I can do it, explain everything, but I cannot do it now. So we have published, I handed over to the Human Rights Commission today. The preliminary report will give the final report very soon. And what is our recommendation at the moment? Restoration of the civil rights.
30 seconds to do that.
Improvement in law and order and establishment of an independent judiciary in Bangladesh. Number 2, impartial investigation and justice for all human rights violations and criminal acts committed by the state or state-backed forces. Number 3 and important, immediate, free, fair, and participatory election, including all political parties under a neutral caretaker government. Thank you all. Thanks for patience here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I know that if they give you 2 hours, you will not even be able to exhaust what is in very small hand. And it is only a person like you who could have given this balanced statistics, balanced reporting, because sometimes we speak as if the population does not also commit abuses against government officials, like the ones you have just presented that have been committed against security officers. So that is it. And we are moving on to our next speaker, who is no other person than Mr. Paulo Kasaka. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and allow me to congratulate you for this initiative. The Center for Gender Justice and Women Empowerment did the right thing, inviting the International Forum for Secular Bangladesh and most, in particular, the Global Center for Democratic Governance for this organizing this meeting. And we just heard Professor Miller. He has an impressive array of reports on the situation of Bangladesh. The last one he mentioned is perhaps the most impressive, the one on the UN Human Rights Commission. It is very impressive because I think very few people understand, and I would even say in Bangladesh, that the humanitarian and I would say international dimension of the crisis in Bangladesh has really no parallel. Because of course, if we go around the world, we can see a lot of disasters, a lot of human rights violations in Africa, in Asia, even sometimes in Europe. But what is happening in Bangladesh is, to start with, the most similar materialization of Orwell's romance. I mean, everything is done in the name of the opposite of what it is done. Sharia Kabir is obviously the most clear example. A man that dedicated all his life to combat genocide, a journalist, a speaker, a thinker, he is accused of genocide. The court that was organized to judge the criminals for the genocide is taken over by the lawyers of the genocide killers. There are, according to the latest figures I just got, 50,000 fake accusations. Most of them anonymous. It's very simple. You want to eradicate some inconvenient person, be it a journalist, a politician, a professor, you just fabricate an accusation for assassination. Some of you that are in the room, you already tell me, and now I have many other testimonies. Sometimes these accusations are absolutely hilarious because people are supposed to have committed murders at the same hour, at the same time, in completely different places where they were actually even in other countries. It's absolute, everything is invented. And everything is invented for the purpose of terminating democracy. Because once again, was done on the name of democracy, but what is the prospect? Why did Mr. Yunus need 18 months for so-called reform? Well, for exactly getting the numbers that we just got from Professor Miller, to get 15 million displaced people, people that have to run away from their homes to escape murder, persecution, or false accusation within Bangladesh. A very high number, undetermined number of those who had to escape the country, some of them, as himself, running serious risks to cross illegally the border. Some others are in the process of refugees. Nearly 400,000 political leaders in prison. It's absolutely amazing. The ones that were murdered within the prison or out of the prison are at least hundreds as well. And the objective, very clearly expressed by some of the Islamist groups like the Jamaat Islam, is to finish the country, to finish, to end the procedure that made Bangladesh independent in 1971. So to finish, and that's with all due respect for every nation, for every people, for every island in this world, but it's not, one of these places that nobody knows of, lost in the Pacific. No, it's 200 million. It's one of the biggest countries in the world. And the project is to erase this country. To say, no, it has no reason to exist. Those who made the liberation war, we erase them. We destroy any sort of memory of their existence. The monuments, the houses, the scripts. We rewrite history. Now the history is being rewritten for the curricula, for all of the story to be erased. So this is the worst nightmare. I think that Mr. Orwell perhaps he would have been surprised how reality managed to overcome his worst nightmares. And this is what is happening. And it should be the center of all those who believe in human rights. All of those who think that everyone has the right to these human rights and to nationality and to language and to a fair and human living. Everyone should be concerned with it, be it in Bangladesh or out of Bangladesh. I am very concerned with it, perhaps because I did have the opportunity of knowing your country, of being in your country, of understanding a bit of what is happening. So, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the time you gave me. And I would just allow you to say 5 seconds one thing. In these conditions, All elections are a fraud. We cannot allow this to be.
Again, no other person would have presented the democratic situation in Bangladesh than you, who is the founder and executive director of the South Asian Democratic Forum. The key human rights instruments that empower people to participate in the government is Article 25 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And it simply says that the will of the people shall be the authority of all governments, which shall be expressed in a very genuine, chaotic elections. This we should know. If there is any tension of it, then we cannot accept it as he has said it. And we are moving on to our next speaker, who is Mr. Suhas Chakma.
Yes.
So
How many minutes?
you have 5 minutes. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll take from what has been mentioned as the last presentation by Mr. Kansata. I believe that Dr. Yunus himself is an act of fraud on the government of Bangladesh. We have to be very clear. There is one ground reality which has been explained by both these speakers. Then there is another reality which is the international community. They believe that there is reform. So, entire international community at this point of time, who have been supporting Yunus government and pumping money, thinking that there is reform in the country, they live in some sort of a fantasy land. There is no reform. There is no mandate to conduct reforms, and in fact, if you read the interview of Dr. Iftikhar Jaman, who is the head of the Transparency International in Bangladesh, who was the chair of the Anti-Corruption Reforms Commission, 3 days back he was mentioning that he even doesn't know what are the recommendations of his own commissions. And if you look at the agenda of this government, they mentioned that they want to get back the money, they want to eradicate corruption, etc. So all the commissions which they have conducted for reforms, I mean, they have lost their validity. Nobody has any idea, and somewhere they are leading the country towards something called July Declaration, which they themselves, those who have authored this, they do not understand. I think we have to understand one thing, that people believe that Dr. Yunus actually has faith in the rule of law. Everybody believes that he's a Nobel laureate, he got the Nobel Prize of Peace, but he has no belief in human rights. If he had believed in human rights, then he would have at least appointed, after sacking previous members of the National Human Rights Commission on 7th November 2024. It's about a year, he has not appointed even his own favorites. So this shows that he has no commitment. And somebody who has been following the digital contract issue, I would say last year, 2024, on 19th and 20th September, when the students organized something on March for Identity to assert the identity of the indigenous peoples, they faced serious human rights violations. The government had appointed one-man commission of inquiry. That report was supposed to come up in 2 weeks. It has not come up. This year, September, about 3 or 4 days back on 28th September, we again faced the same situation. Once again, they formed a committee by 5 officials from the districts. Then there will not be any inquiry or findings. So nothing has changed. And this is reflected from the fact that when they had the Constitutional Reform Commission, they did not include either a minority or an indigenous peoples. So legally speaking, both the minorities and indigenous peoples don't exist. Their existence is denied in the country itself, and there is not a single reference to indigenous people. So human rights situation, if you look at government facts, if you look at the minorities in the country, it has deteriorated to such an extent that I think it's fair to say that there is anarchy in the country. You survive on your own unless you belong to the NCP, BNP, or one of the ruling parties, Jamaat Islami. So there is no rule of law. You can't go to the police station. Police is not for you. So that's in mainland Bangladesh. You can imagine what happens in the peripheries like the Chittagong complex. Now the question is, in my conclusions, what's the priority of this government? I think the priority of this government is to actually manufacture lies. Everywhere, when we talk about freedom of opinion and expression, the UN as well as the international community has been saying the government should not be satisfied with the truth. And what we have in Bangladesh is CA press review fact check, which actually this is our lies every day. From somewhere they will pick up, it's funded by the foreign government. I don't want to mention the name who are funding this CA press review facts check. Now if the government becomes the sole guardian of the truth, then obviously the truth shall never come out. And that's what we had seen in the last interview which he gave to journalist Mehdi Hassan. And he effectively denies all the atrocities committed on minorities, indigenous peoples, as well as human rights violations in a country. So he gave 3 priorities in that interview. First priority for him is reform. As I said, he himself doesn't know where the reforms are. The second priority, which he said, is prosecution of Prime Minister Hasina and those who were involved. And we have been told by the previous speaker that those who are the defenders or the defense counsel of those who committed genocide, they have become the lawyers, judges, etc. And the third point is that we might have elections if so, because some people want us to be there 5 years, 10 years, and 50 years. And once we come to February next year, we will realize that it's 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years. So I would say, I would end by saying that at times we are very disappointed with the international community, and that includes us, the High Commissioner for Human Rights. If we are to look at the statements of the international community in the last 1 year, it is as if no violation of human rights have been taking place in the country, when in every aspect, every thematic issue, the situation of human rights has deteriorated. So I think the challenge that we have is actually to bring out this truth and the fantasy which exists at this point in time in the international community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. What stands out clear is this presentation is that minorities are left out in the governance in Bangladesh. And if we want to talk about good governance, we must talk about inclusive governance, which takes into consideration every other community, every other person in that country. And so with this one, we have in our panel the only amongst the hands, and who is no other person than Mrs. Natalia. Mr. Natalia, please.
Thank you very much, distinguished chairman and distinguished colleagues and friends. On behalf of my organization, the Never Again Association, and my initiative Minorities for Peace in Eastern Europe, let me thank the Forum for Civil Bangladesh, the Center for Gender Justice and Women Empowerment, and Global Center for Democratic Governance to invite me to this event. And it is an honor to contribute to this important discussion on democracy and human rights in Bangladesh in these challenging times. And it's also an honor for me personally, because exactly 1 year ago I was presented here as a United Nations Minority Fellow. So I'm very honored to be here again. My background is in Holocaust and genocide studies with focus on genocide denial, reconciliation, and memorialization. At my event today, I represent my organization, the Never Again Association in Poland, that has been active for 25 years to commemorate genocide and deal with contemporary challenges, combat racism, extremism, hate crimes, and while Minorities for Peace initiative focuses on promoting peace, positive peace and interactive and religious harmony by empowering minorities in Poland, Eastern Europe, and worldwide. Our engagement in Bangladesh is guided by the same values: protection of minorities, recognition of past atrocities, and countering denied, and building societies where diversity is celebrated. Bangladesh is a diverse country, as we already all know, with Hindu, Buddhist, Christian minorities being part of it, as well as indigenous people. And at the same time, facing one of the most severe human rights challenges since the Liberation War of 1971. The reported violence against religious minorities and indigenous people is especially alarming. And the society is also highly traumatized and minorities feel insecure today. Unfortunately, such attacks are often minimized or excused by portraying the victims as politically involved and therefore legitimate targets. There are reported attempts to minimize or justify violence by saying that these minorities are politicians. They're politically involved, they're connected with political party Awami, therefore it's not violence, so it can be justified. And there are such examples. And this strategy, which is usually used by perpetrators to those who deny or destroy atrocities and genocide in history by transferring the guilt to victims themselves. And this is what we, for example, experienced in Europe during the Holocaust, during the Second World War. Jews were killed because of being communist, for example. We have seen this pattern in many parts of the world today, and perpetrators shifts the blame to victims to justify atrocities. And later, the Holocaust in Europe has become part of a Holocaust denial. Similarly, in Bangladesh today, we can identify some aspects of this dangerous, notorious, dangerous tendency, unfortunately. And the process of dealing with the past, and I wanted to mention this, it's very important. We know that Bangladesh is a post-genocide society, and to a large extent, many challenges that Bangladesh is facing today are consequences of incomplete process of dealing with the past. The process of dealing with the past is a framework developed in post-conflict and post-genocide context. It defines as a holistic process that addresses the needs of communities by acknowledging history, recognizing victims, and ensuring accountability. And we know that the United Nations in 1997 defined 4 pillars, dependent pillars of dealing with the past: right to know, documentation, truth commissions, historical reporting, the right to justice, accountability, protection of victims, the right to reparations, memorials, healing, the guarantee of non-recurrence, protection of minorities, building positive peace, disarmament. None of this has been fully realized in Bangladesh, and the process today is very difficult, challenging. And yes, together with our Bangladeshi colleagues, such as writer journalist Shakar Kabir, the former president of the Forum of Secular Bangladesh, who was mentioned today, we had a privilege in Europe, in Poland, worked with him to promote dialogue, remembrance, non-violence, to contributing to the process of dealing with the past in Bangladesh, but also in Europe today, in Poland. And he was unjustly, he was arrested as he's a symbol of courage needed to defend truth and democracy. And just to mention that I met Shakar Kabir in Dhaka several years ago during a conference, and since then we have been working closely together to commemorate genocide and to bring a process of dealing with the past in Bangladesh, and he's very much respected in our part of the world. He was the first journalist from Asia who interviewed Lech Walesa, the first democratic president of Poland, covering democratic changes in Europe over 30 years ago, and he published a book in Bengali. So he's a symbol of democracy, and he's now arrested in Bangladesh. Yes, and just to mention that our global campaign in support of Shakar Kabir included such organizations who supported him as the Genocide Watch. It's one of the leading organizations against genocide, and Gregory Stanton, its founder, Global Project Against Hate and Extremism, and many others. And one thing I would like also to mention, as someone coming from Eastern Europe, and you know I come from Poland, and it's a frontline country. Yes, just to say that there are many countries where there are political prisoners today. And for example, Russian Federation today has many political prisoners. And I think Bangladesh is moving dangerously in the same direction with so many political prisoners, and Shakar Kabir is an example. I would skip everything just to say that What is important our global solidarity and global efforts to support people in Bangladesh and promote non-violence and truth and justice. Thank you very much. Joy Bangla.
Thank you very much. That was the only cock amongst the hens. And I will not go far. My closest neighbor is the one who will take the next speech, Mr. Chris Blackburn. Please take the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the hosts. It's a privilege to be here in Geneva to talk about
Remember, we have 5 minutes. Please.
Our shared commitment to human rights, to truth and to justice. And it's in that spirit that I must speak about Bangladesh today. A country whose people rose in 2024 wanting change, but whose present is now marked by violence, denial, and a dangerous attempt to vandalize the history of Bangladesh itself. Let me begin with a reminder. In March of just this year, a collection of the world's leading human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the Committee to Protect Journalists, issued a powerful joint communique letter to the interim government, and which landed on Mohammed Yunus's desk. In it, they warned of continued mass arbitrary arrests, indiscriminate jailings, the harassment of journalists, and rising threats to minorities and the vulnerable in Bangladesh. They called for a repeal of abusive laws and they urged the interim government to protect freedom of expression and to guarantee accountability for abuses under its rule. The message was simple. A revolution without human rights protections should be no revolution at all. Then 6 months later, the warnings have proved tragically correct. On the 23rd of September 2025, just a couple of weeks ago, in Chagrig, a district near Chittagong, a 12-year-old indigenous Mama girl was allegedly gang raped and sexually assaulted. The community responded with peaceful protests demanding justice and safety. Instead of protection, they were met with bullets. Security forces opened fire on demonstrators, killing at least 3 people. More than 60 indigenous shops and 15 homes were looted and burned to the ground. In one of the most vulnerable corners of Bangladesh, violence was piled on top of trauma, leaving a child suffering unacknowledged and an entire community stigmatized. What followed after was just as disturbing as the violence itself. Instead of accountability by the interim government, there was denial. The Home Affairs Advisor dismissed the unrest as a foreign conspiracy. The Bangladeshi army alleged a larger plot by indigenous groups in the country, even claiming that militants and weapons had been imported from abroad. Senior political figures went so far as to call the rape allegation fake. These words were later retracted under public pressure in Bangladesh because of the media and public outrage. But the damage was already done. This was not the language of justice, it was the rhetoric of impunity. It was victim blaming masquerading as governance. But this was not an isolated incident. The tragedy of Kagwachari is a part of a broad pattern in Bangladesh. The interim government under Mohammed Yunus, instead of building the foundations of justice, is allowing denial and deflection to become its daily practice. It continues the dark tradition of arbitrary detentions and intimidation, and it is allowing extremists to dictate the terms of public life. And it is attempting something even more dangerous, and that is rewriting Bangladesh's history. We must remember the interim government denied that Mahdi, Sufis, Hindus, Buddhists, and Christians were under attack last year. The BBC sent Sarah Azan to investigate, and they found that yes, they had been under attack, despite Yunus's denials to the world. The interim government then tried to discredit the BBC and human rights activists, saying their work was flawed. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't reform. Obviously, I need to keep this fairly short. We must be absolutely clear about this. When governments deny the reality of rape, they do not protect society. They give license to predators and the perpetrators. When they blame foreign conspiracies for communal unrest, they do not restore peace. They encourage further division in society. When they allow radical Islamists to redefine history, they do not build unity in Bangladesh. When they try to erase the sacrifices of 1971, this is shown that they're on the path of denial. And denial is a weapon. It undermines truth, mocks justice, and erodes trust in institutions. Bangladesh deserves better. Its people deserve better. They deserve truth, not denial, justice, not impunity. History preserved, not vandalized. So let us here in Geneva commit ourselves to ensuring and putting pressure on the international community so they don't remain silent in Bangladesh. For silence in the face of denial is complicity. We must call for the Nobel Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus to rediscover his humanity, because his legacy is already tarnished and in tatters. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Chris. From your statement, we captured that of all the violations, there is a denial. And when the denial is perpetrated by the highest authority of the state, it means that there is no noise. That calls on us to continue to make the noise we are making and bring to the international community unquestionable information and statistics as far as this is concerned. Thank you. We are moving now on to I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ju. Niju. You have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Don't steal my minutes.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and who attended here. I was listening all the data and information from our honored guest here, but I have a specific observation and question. You know, this year on 12th of February, United Nations has produced a report on Bangladesh human rights violation stuff. And just let you know that we have already prepared another rebuttal of that report of 490 pages of rebuttal so far. So we will publish it very soon, probably within 2 or 3 days. But my question is, when someone is actually in the chair of the Commission of the Human Rights and prepared a report and also involved in Bangladeshi politics, isn't it contradictory? Because he specifically mentioned on 4th of March 2025 in BBC Radio that he called the Chief of Army Staff and specifically told him not to involve in any matter of the government. But I was just wondering how come a Human Rights Commission of United Nations can dictate someone and tell that they cannot involve in the government? Because what Army Chief will do, Army Chief normally help government if there is any situation. So there was a situation last July. But I can see that United Nations Charter, Article 2, Subsection 7, Article 39 and 100. So I want to ask the honored guest here, will you please talk about this? How come a Commissioner of Human Rights, Chairman of United Nations, can involve or intervene in internal politics, whether he should be accountable for it, whether he will be sacked for it? I want to know it. Thank you.
Can I give you one piece of information? The internet of Bangladesh has been slowed down because of this meeting, because they cannot show their video live streaming at the present. They are so scared. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you. It simply means that we are not just making a noise. We are making important, dishing out important information that hurts some people. So they are taking it seriously. And so I would like to ask you, I would like to ask Shun, you have statement.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's not a statement, but just two questions I have. One, given recent allegations of repeated attacks on massacres against the indigenous people in the Chatham tribes, why is the government blocking an independent investigation? And the incidents involving looted and burned homes, as we see on the video, plus deaths from army figures, a great violation of the international human rights. Why restriction of full disclosure to the media and global community? This is the first question. The second one is, do you support a joint international investigation coordinated by the European Parliament and the UN to eventually probe allegations of Geneva provers detention and atrocities against Chotam Hill tribe, indigenous people? These two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Shun. I think the panelists have taken the question and give them time to respond. Meanwhile, our sister, you have 1 minute, please. Tell us who you are and
thank you very
contribute to
much.
ask questions.
Excellencies, I thank you all for your endeavors, and I would just like to add a message of hope. As we have reached that point in history, the end of the old age, and we are now moving in a new era, completely new, and that means we are creating for the first time a conscious civilization, which will be completely different, so we can let go all which has happened till now, just give it up, so the new can come, and it will be amazing. We create really the most brilliant civilization this planet has ever seen, and conscious. This is important because till now it was all unconscious. There were only maybe 5% who had consciousness.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, the floor is yours. We have 4 minutes to debate on this. Questions, contributions. While you are maturing your mind on questions, I would like to ask Rahman to take 2 minutes and give us a
Thank you, moderator. And first of all, on this event, I have to very hardest thanks to all of our honorable panelists, my distinguished guests, my Bangladeshi diaspora especially, who are give effort from Paris, from Belgium, from UK, from Germany, and from Zurich, several places there give a lot of effort to come to join the program because they own the Bangladesh. And those are people who own the Bangladesh as a secular democracy. It's not a radicalized, it's not an Islamic country, it's not a Taliban country to look the people who are the Bangladeshi diaspora, who have the get independent in 1971 by the blood. So our peoples and all of the solidarity in all of the audience, I have to say a lot of thanks on behalf of the Bangladesh, on behalf of our organization. So please you attend and you please, all of you, your social media,
2 minutes, please,
have to raise your voice to Bangladesh, feedback a secular country and get a justice, rule of law. So I have to invite all of you after the event of the system. Thank you.
Let us give room for panelists to respond to the question raised, which is quite important. Thank you.
We will welcome investigation by the European parliamentarians with respect to the killings, atrocities made in the Chittagong tracks. And one of the reasons why government of Bangladesh has not made last year's report and is not ordering any judicial inquiry as being demanded across the country, I think it's because the Bangladesh Army rules the Chittagong tracks, and Bangladesh Army has been the consistent political party which wields power and without whom you cannot remain in power. So that power actually originates from the presence of the Chittagong tracks. And at this point in time, Dr. Yunus wants to keep the Bangladesh Army on his side, and that's why he is not ordering any kind of investigation. And that's why there is a need for international investigation. In fact, I met the OSCHR officials yesterday, You have a field office there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for the time you have taken to be here. We have just 1 hour and we're exhausted on 1 hour. I want to thank my panelists, your panelists, who have been very wonderful in presenting the different aspects of human rights violation in Bangladesh. At this moment, my own time is up. I will not hang on the chair like the government of Bangladesh. I don't let leave. I'm leaving.